The following is a special presentation of the PDF Sports Network.
All right. Good morning, everybody. If you know someplace forum-wise, because I know that names change and things switch around and such, you could definitely share it if you can. Appreciate it. What's going on? Yeah. Kingston Lions. Will the real Kingston Lions please stand up? Because 1 week you guys look like gangbusters, and then the slide has been crazy. Absolutely crazy. And we will talk about it because the topic of this week's Mother's Day edition of Way Too Early with Patt Bleezy is the emotions of semi-pro football. Emotions. So we shall see whether this is an issue of football, where just the X's and O's ain't there, whether it's just, let's be honest, if it's not execution, what is it on the semi-pro level, you know? It's funny because everybody kind of masks what is an emotional issue. And I say emotional not to be a jerk or to like make fun of it or anything like that, but that's kind of what it is. So when you're talking about the trials and the tribulations of semi-pro football and all the things that we have to deal with, including things that, as I told you on prior episodes, that we are just going to make that, hey, it's just part of the game type of thing. Part of the game of semi-pro is having players not show up. Part of the game of semi-pro is dealing with BS. So if we're going to accept that as part of the landscape, then we got to talk about it, which is when guys get emotional, then you see that different things happen. So is it a football issue or an emotional issue? And not having all your players, not say that happened with Kingston because I'm not sure what the numbers were on that, but we're going to speak about it more in a overview. So, good morning, everybody. So let's say good morning, everybody. Hey, what up, Joe? Haven't heard from you in a while, my guy. Good morning, Taz. What up, what up? Errol, what's to do? What to do? Okay, cool. So, let's get right to it, shall we? So, we have playoffs now. And I'm glad that we brought up the whole emotional part first, because emotions in the, make sure I have this right, emotions in the AFL caused issues this week, man. It really did. Because you ended up with, and let me get up the correct page and then I'll get you tapped in. Because of the emotions, we have a team that tapped out at halftime in the playoffs, which is kind of crazy. It's also crazy how there it is. I don't know what it did on that. Cool. So let's take a look at the scoreboard from last week, because again, it's Mother's Day, and I want everybody to get a chance to get a chance to spend quality time with mom and any other mothers in your life. As what you need? That's yours. What? Well, it's mine today. You come out here demanding stuff. Yeah, as you see, that's the reason what I'm responding to. All right, so in the Big East, the Wolfpack make a statement. The Wolfpack is one of those teams that we said in the beginning of the year, constant when it comes to being able to put out a product that rides, the roller coaster of emotions very well. So they can go through trials and tribulations and still win games they're supposed to win. And that's what they did. Now, if you have an issue with the scores, you could put it in the comments and say, hey, Pat, you got this score wrong. I'm going by what commissioners say, by what the website says. So I'm not just choosing these scores out of nowhere. It is based on what the league has said, and that's what I got. So, Green Wave 38, Crusaders 12. I don't even think that game was as close as it appears, as the Green Wave jumped out to a huge lead early, and I think they were cruising with a donut at halftime. The Canes get a forfeit win over the Black Panthers. The Black Panthers fought valiantly to the end, but now are in a situation where they kind of tapped out. So with the same energy that I had last year, let me just explain real quick that once you tap out, now it's not official, but once you don't show up for a game, once you forfeit, my opinion only, is your season should be over. That's where the term that I coined, optional football, came from, where you opted not to play 1 week, but then you came back the next week and continued your season like nothing happened. So all of the situations absolutely suck, but if you go out, play a game, and you tap out early, it sucks, it's bad, it absolutely is a bad look. However, not making the trip and not even trying, not paying the ref fee, which puts your team in your organization at an advantage over other teams and organizations that are paying ref fees and going through all of their games, is definitely not the same. So if I have to choose between, hey, you got to tap out and then come back the next week, versus, oh, I'm not going to play at all this week, I'm going to choose an easier opponent for next week, I'll choose the former rather than the latter. Dolphins. Oh, this is an interesting one. Was it the Dolphins doing that well, or was it Kingston Lions having a bit of a meltdown after their big let-up last week? So now the Kingston Lions are on a slide. What does that do to the playoff picture? We will definitely talk about that. Let me run down the scores real quick and then get to the talk, and then I definitely want to get into comments, possibly bring somebody on, and then take it from there. Boom, there you go. NEAFL Wolfpack and Militia. Militia, my number one overall in the rankings, scored a 1-point victory over a Wolfpack team that is not as much of a juggernaut as I think people are making them out to be. They went on their run in the early part of the season, but now that they're playing tougher opponents, they had some losses. So now we got to talk about the Militia and whether they deserve that top spot. Panthers 14 tied 12. So two really good games, by the way, especially in the last week of the season, to have these two games be combined 3 points. By the way, check out the spread makers. I know, and I'm definitely going to talk about it on the Bleezy show on Thursday. Cats be talking about the spread makers, but meanwhile, 2.5 point spread, and it's a 2-point game. That's pretty damn close. Bullies ended up being the Eagles 22-0, which kind of irritates me because, again, I was at a game where the Bullies tapped out before halftime, and now they're a playoff team. That's a little tough for me to stomach. Again, personal opinion. Take it how you want. And here's the other reason why. The Owls, who apparently did not want to play the game with the Knights because they considered it a waste of time, especially on the road at the Knights, apparently played 8-on-11 football, which in itself, next time, and let me switch the camera for this one so you can see my reaction. The next time y'all want to talk about player safety, and y'all doing stuff like playing 8-on-11, and by the way, 8-on-11, and the team that has 11 only manages to win 6-0 is kind of wild. But next time you want to talk about player safety, stop doing shit like that. And then when an owner of a team suggests something, you want to play out the player safety, like, they don't care about us, blah, 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 blah. Nah, stop doing that. Because y'all do it to yourselves more often than not. Unit 38, Vikings 0. So, the forfeit win that the Vikings took over the unit, I think it's safe to say that it wouldn't have worked out that way if they had waited the extra 30 minutes to get on the field. However, the Vikings kind of get their karma. Sorry, my neighbor has a really loud Mini Cooper that you hear in the background. Don't know where he's heading to, but he's definitely not going to do that for a while. So the unit end up getting their bit of revenge on the Vikings, and the Vikings get a little bit of karma where they are bounced from the playoffs because of a tiebreaker, which is kind of interesting. And then in the ECFL, the game of the week altogether was the Falcons and the Warhawks. We thought that it might be a battle of undefeateds, but the Warhawks slipped up along the way. Falcons win that game 20-7. Bruins win a forfeit game over the Raiders, so they end up with 2 wins on the season. And then the Cardinals make a big statement right before the playoffs, 58-0. And I'm about to, okay, he's moving. About to have a conversation with that guy. So we have 4 undefeateds left. The Connecticut Falcons now have the Bulldogs in the semifinal, and then the championship game, if they advance. Again, they're going to be a pretty heavy favorite against the Bulldogs. The Golden Lions and Green Wave now set up for their matchup. Battle of undefeateds for the last week of the regular season in the Big East. And the Militia now have the Bullies. I'm not sure how this game is going to fare, because if the Bullies couldn't finish a game against the Raptors, I'm not sure how they're going to finish a game against the Militia. The Militia being 8-0, the Raptors being a 4-4 team. So that's going to be a tough one. So that's the breakdown. Now I'm going to give you a preview of my updated rankings. And this is where I'm at with it. So the Militia did not have enough of a showing in the tail end of the season for me to justify keeping them at the number 1 spot. So the Green Wave definitely make a statement and win games the way that they're supposed to win, and in the way that they're supposed to win them. Their one game that was really a tough game was a comeback victory against the Kingston Lions. I think the Kingston Lions were what I think they should be in playing their best football. So I can't really knock them for a 1-point loss, even if the Kingston Lions record right now looks kind of crazy. It also helps that I've seen NEAFL teams live and in color, and now I'm doing the math, and the math is working in the Green Wave's favor. So I'm going to go ahead and say that they're the best team in the region right now as it stands. So Green Wave 1, Militia 2. The Falcons move up to 3. I think the Falcons holding court in the ECFL over the teams that are better. Again, they were feasting on the non-playoff teams, but now they make a big statement game against the Warhawks and win a big game when the lights are on, so to speak. So that's a big one. So I have them jumping the Golden Lions. So I have the Golden Lions at 4. I know there's going to be some folks mad at me, but hey, it is what it is. Number 5 is the Unit. The Unit made their statement against their second loss of the season, which was a forfeit on technicalities. So that 6-2 is really like a 7-1. So when you look at the scrum between the Unit, Warhawks, and Cardinals, which are all wrapped up in there, along with the Wolfpack, by the way, as a 2-loss team, that kind of worked itself out, but that's where I have them. That's where the disagreement could occur, and filling out the top 10 or the rest of the top 10 is definitely a challenge based on how close these teams are, including the Warhawks and the Cardinals. But Warhawks and Cardinals will be able to figure that out this week because they play each other do or die semifinals in the ECFL. So before I get to the playoff picture, let me check to see if I have any comments. Bam. What up? All right. Happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to you and yours as well. Cut the doors. Yeah. It's a mini, but it's a Mini Cooper, and it has a bar in the back. So he does like a mobile bar. So, yeah. And he makes some really good Manhattans, so I can't really knock it. Happy Mother's Day to Mom. Hey, yes. Indeed. Falcons are 7-0, 122-7. Yep. Falcons are 7-0. Yep. Did I have them at something other than 7-0? Possibly, but I'll fix that. No problem. All right. Speaking of Mrs. Pat looks like she's on a mission somewhere. Cool. All right. So back to it. Let's take a look at the playoff picture, shall we? Let's start with who's not starting the playoffs this week, which is the Big East. So, as you know, Green Wave and Golden Lions both battle undefeateds. That happens this week. 7-0 Wave, 6-0 Golden Lions. Again, the schedule's unbalanced because of teams dropping out, so they're not going to play the same amount of games. But that's going to decide the 1 seed or the 2 seed, regardless. The Wolfpack now are a strong number 3 at 5-2, and that 5-2 record looks pretty solid. Hold on for 1 second. Where are you heading? Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, my son doing my son type things. You have the 4 seed, the Dolphins, who are now a little bit of a surge here, 3-3, getting back to 500. That's going to be big. They have the Crusaders left. If they finish with a winning record and home field for the first round, that's a pretty successful season. Kingston Lions. Oof. Will the real Kingston Lions please stand up? So they have the Bengals this week, which a week ago we would have said was pretty much a lock if you were the spread maker on that one. But now not looking at nearly as good. And then also sets up for their last game of the year against the Hurricanes, because the Hurricanes are now in the 6th spot. So not only can this switch where the Kingston Lions might line up to go from Kingston to Long Island for a playoff game by bumping from the 5 to the 6, Kingston not only not having a home playoff game, this slide has been pretty crazy right here, which we'll definitely talk about. And I know Drewski will talk about on his show during the course of the week. So now we create over on this side with the Crusaders losing. They're at 1-5. They have the Dolphins left. They could kind of play spoiler with the Dolphins a little bit, but the Dolphins, with their 3 wins, is looking kind of bulletproof now, especially now that the Black Panthers are done. So I filled in everybody's losses who had the Black Panthers still on the schedule. So this is including forfeit wins because of the Black Panthers not finishing. So the Bengals, Kingston Lions all locked up at 2-4. Now the Bengals are playing for their lives against the Kingston Lions. Golly, if the Bengals manage to head up to Kingston and score the upset and then end up with a playoff spot, that's going to be something. So, again, the storylines, which we spoke about on the show on Thursday, and there were some folks in the comments section, specifically Skip Jenkins, talking about, why are we talking about 2-win teams? Why are we talking about 3-win teams? Because it is a bunch of 3-win teams, a bunch of 2-win teams that are scrambling for playoff spots, and not everybody's going to make it. So we've seen in the past where so many teams have made the playoffs. In fact, some teams made the playoffs that didn't even want to make the playoffs. That, to me, was whack. This is much better. I love the fact that teams are scraping and clawing and competing to get into the playoffs. That's good football right there, one way or another. So we can't always just talk about the 1 and the 2. We give them their respect. But right now, the battle right here for their lives is between 5, 6, and 7. And then the Crusaders, beep, 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 beep. Life support over there. We'll see if they'll be able to recover. Playoffs locked in with the ECFL. The Falcons are the 1 seed. They will take on the Bulldogs. The Warhawks are now the 2 seed, and for their reward of getting the 2 seed, they have to play a really hot Cardinals team. This right here is your game of the week right here. The Warhawks and the Cardinals, so much so that you'll see it reflects in the spreads, and I'll get to the spreads really quickly and then kind of get to comments, and then we'll get up out of here and say Happy Mother's Day to everybody. So the playoff picture in the NEAFL, this unofficial, but I checked with Saplinski and kind of asked him, what the tiebreakers look like, because there were some interesting things going on, including teams on conference sides that didn't play each other. So this is what we got. The Militia 8-0 taking on the Bullies at 3-5. The Tide at 5-3 taking on the Owls at 3-5. Again, that Owls team snuck into the playoffs and snuck in with a 3-5 record. The Bullies, the team that tapped out, they end up with their 3-5 record, getting them a date with the Militia. So how crazy would it be if the Owls take out the Tide and end up with a losing record in the semifinals? If they actually manage to get into the semifinals, imagine really quickly if they score an upset over the Militia and they get into the championship with a 5-5 record, which is something rarely seen. But hey, that's why they play the game. So this is shaping up to be pretty interesting. So on the other side, we have Unit and Raptors. The Raptors get in with the 4 seed, and then the 2-3 is a mixture of 5-3 teams, 5-3 Panthers versus the Wolfpack. That's going to be a pretty good game as well. The Panthers had the head-to-head. I think they won a pretty close game earlier in the season, and that is it. So let's take a look at this week's game. I do apologize. I didn't change the date on this thing. These are, yeah. Let me just get the date out the way. Yeah, let me just get the date out of the way. Because I totally forgot to change the date, and I will change the date, no problem. So this is the May 17th weekend. Last week for the, actually no, I think Big East has this week, and then there's one makeup game on the Memorial Day weekend, which is the following week. What do we got? We have Wolfpack and Panthers, which anticipate to be a forfeit. Again, that's unofficial, but as it should be, in my opinion. Once you forfeit, you're done. Crusaders at the Dolphins, which now is going to be a pretty critical game. Dolphins win, and they're pretty much stamped for the playoffs and separate themselves from the rest of that pack that we spoke about. Crusaders trying to get into the dance and into the mix, and well, this is a playoff game for them. If they don't get this thing done, they're pretty much done. Green Wave and Golden Lions, that's the game of the week. As you could see, this has been the Green Wave's week. Not only did they go from 2-1 in the regional standings, this is what I have. I have a 5.5 point spread. Do they win by a full touchdown, or do they win by less than a touchdown? That's, to me, what it feels like in terms of a game. Also, take into account that it is in Connecticut. You can see how the Green Wave are looking when it comes to the whole package right now. So pretty impressive. Give those guys their due. Bengals and Kingston Lions, which now becomes a super critical game. And you would never have thought that this would be a 2.5 point spread, but based on the way that the Kingston Lions have looked, what else are you going to do? In the AFL playoffs, we have the Bullies at the Militia, Owls at the Tide, Raptors at the Unit, Wolfpack at the Panthers, and I wasn't going to get all of my contacts and spread makers together this morning because of the holiday, because of Mother's Day, but as soon as I get that, I will release that information on what those spreads are going to be. But again, that's the schedule as I know it. ECFL playoffs, Bulldogs at the Falcons. Falcons made a major statement. They're a 13.5 point or 2-score favorite against the Bulldogs. Warhawks and Cardinals. If you've been paying attention over there, it's even. It's totally even. So I think that's the first time this year out of all the games that we had a even spread on any matchup, and that's what it is. So playoff time. Put up or shut up. The emotions are out. I don't care who you got, who you don't got, whatever team showed up, whatever players of yours that showed up, that's your team. No more what ifs, no more hypotheticals, no more if we had all our guys, whatever. This is what it is. You got who you got, play football. If you get bumped, you get bumped. If you advance, the other stuff doesn't matter what you did prior. That's what it is. So I think you have a lot of interesting storylines going into this week. Check in the comments. I think we have a lot of interesting storylines going into this week. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we have good football. We have really good football, and that's what it is. So I'll pause a few. Again, happy Mother's Day to everybody out there, whether it's your own mother, wife, baby mother, girlfriend, whatever. Happy Mother's Day to anybody out there that gave birth. So check the comments. I think we're good. Anybody want to be added? Let's see. I'm not invited to watch. I think that's it. Got it. And now I will end with this. When you look at the schedule, and again, I'll talk about this more. Happy Mother's Day. I'll talk about this more during the course of the week on the respective shows. All of the games have consequence, and we're in the tail end of the season. That's absolutely awesome. I'm not even gassing it, to tell you the truth. It's meaningful. The more that you have meaningful football, especially on the lower end of the standings, that's a good thing. So you're not going to end up with teams showing up or not showing up at all, or showing up raggedy or what have you. Now, some things are unavoidable, but I think the sport itself will weed those guys out because of the elimination of optional football this year. So great job to all those teams. Great job to any AFL teams that finished out their seasons. Great job to the ECFL teams that finished out their seasons. And for the Big East teams, it should be an interesting sprint at the end. And, of course, we got the two top dogs that are playing, and we have all of the rest all competing and getting a little bit of shine as well, as they should. So for another week of Way Too Early with Coach Pat, I'll see you guys this week. Enjoy. Happy Mother's Day.